Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Oddcast podcast.
Off the record.
I'm Blackie.
I'm Erica.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking time out of your, well, I know here, a beautiful Sunday afternoon to hang with us and talk.
About Sweden.
About Sweden, yes. Today's guest is somebody we've had on the show. And, well, I'll let you explain.
Well, this is Suzanne, Swedish Sasquatch. And we had a great episode with her prior, mostly about UFOs. She referred to as Zippies, which was awesome. Everybody loved her, of course. She was so easy to listen to and so easy to follow and gave great explanations and descriptions. And anyhow, we've asked her to come back because she has lived some time in Sweden. And we want to see through her eyes as an American who has lived in Sweden and has come back. We would love to share this experience with her and see Sweden through her eyes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Suzanne.
Hey. Hi.
Hey, Suzanne.
Welcome back, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just wanted to start real quick. You had mentioned Sedona.
Yeah.
Back from our previous episode. And did you say you had visited there, or maybe it was a popular time recently?
Oh, I was there last weekend with some friends. We went for a long weekend. Yeah.
How did that go? Did you see much?
Well, we were there. I took some friends out. They hadn't been before, so we went back out to that location. And Erica, you mentioned you'd never seen the Milky Way.
Right.
You would have been just awestruck. It was beautiful.
Well,
But the only thing was we only had binoculars. I don't have the night vision that you need. You need like the military grade night vision. So I know what I'm looking at. I saw a couple, but I'm trying to tell my friends, they were excited. Then they're like squirrels. Oh. So they saw a couple, but it wasn't on the same level that, if you go out with the night vision, not I can see a lizard, at 50 feet night vision. You need the military grade, enhanced. I can never remember the name. This is a job for my husband. I have to write it down.
I just call them nods. That's what I call them.
Nods. Okay.
Nods.
That's what we need. But it was really fun. We had a great time, and Sedona is always beautiful. So it's worth it. It's one of my happy places.
Awesome. I'm glad that you did have a great time there.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to talk about Sweden, and we're going to talk about it as an overall. So, of course, everybody in chat, if you have questions, we'll try to address those. We know y'all always contribute to the conversation, and it's fun. But I have, several different topics we'll discuss. And, obviously it doesn't have to be exact figures, or quoted percentages, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just, I wanted to get more of your feeling or your personal experiences from there. It's always interesting to me to study other cultures and to see how they're different from us. Not saying anybody's better than another, but I just like to see the differences and a lot of times, what values they've held on to, what means something to them, and because we see every day the things that change over the years here in the United States, but we have no idea what it's like to live elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, we had watched a couple of videos over Sweden, and a lot of the raves about it was, the grocery stores. And I know they hold much higher standards from what we had talked about with Suzanne. Labeling and what ingredients can be imported into Sweden. So if you don't care, will you go over, just a little bit of that description on how strict they can be or their higher standards about their products?
Okay, so from a food standpoint,
from food, so importing goods and what is allowed in general, or if there's anything that's definitely not allowed, or their restrictions. I think you described their labels kind of like a cigarette pack would be here in the United States. There, okay. So what would be listed that way, or what would they not allow to be imported at all?
It is every country is different, so it depends on where you are. Because I've spent a lot of time in Germany, I've spent time in England, I've spent time in Dubai and Sweden. So when you go from different places, you notice the changes. Going to Sweden, one of the ways I learned the language was going to the grocery stores, because I like to cook, and like, so you learn the words, you start seeing it. Oh, or if you don't know, ask, everybody speaks English, but it's not like you can't ask. But it's the general rule of thumb. If you're ever out and you're shopping and you don't know something or you're lost, ask a teenager, because every single teenager just about in the world speaks English. Or get the app on your phone, which you talk and then it talks and then you talk, which they didn't have when I went there.
I'm sure.
Learning how to read the different labels, it took me, the intricacies of the labels took a little bit of time, because I had to learn the language more. So, you can tell that it's Campbell's soup, right? And you can see that it says tomato, because it's almost the same word. If you want to talk about something fun, the difference between Swedish and English, it's totally mashable, and you can have more fun with the language. Like, my friends, endless hours of enjoyment teaching me new words.
Oh,
that can be, construed as something else, let's just say. But when you go to the grocery store, the biggest difference probably are on imported foods. And Sweden and Europe, Sweden gets a lot of its produce. It is grown in Sweden anyway, but also importing from Germany, right? Because it sits in the Schengen agreement and the Schengen Union, the European Union. And then there's another agreement called the Schengen. Don't ask me to talk about I don't know. But I can tell you that when they're buying food and bringing food into the country, a lot of it is coming from Europe, with some of it coming from outside the Schengen and different areas. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is with meats. In Sweden, I'm just going to start. Sweden's the size of California, right? It has a population of like 10 million, less than what you find in Los Angeles. So when you're talking about like bringing stuff in, we're not bringing it in the United States is. It's a lot more manageable. All right. And then when you're talking about importing different things from different countries, they have Swedish meats, and just like organic stuff like that, they charge more for Swedish meats, a little bit, like cents on the dollar, right? But if it's Swedish, say it's Swedish lamb instead of Australian lamb, you can get Australian lamb, but it's less expensive than the Swedish lamb. Why is that? Well, because the Swedish lamb has more rigorous growing standards, just like the vegetables and stuff. They don't allow the different pesticides. The beef and cattle and pork specifically, they don't feed the animals all of the growth hormones, not allowed in the EU. And some are, but not like you see here. You know how you hear people talk about all the vaccinations and everything? So that is really held to a higher level. It's the same with pesticides in the foods. Non-GMO products, GMO treated things. There's a whole list I sent you, Rebecca, so you could kind of look at the differences. But now you're getting into the minutia of food. But overall, you'll never see GMO corn. It just, you don't. And food looks and tastes like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
You're not getting a Costco chicken for $5.99. You're getting a chicken that looks like and tastes like a real chicken, and it's $6.99. I mean, it's not that big of a difference, right? Because in a grocery store here, if I go down to Fry's or Safeway or what have you, I'm still paying $10 for a bird that may or may not be healthy. And there, I know that I'm getting a hen that's, living the way it should. And then they have different rules. I mentioned pork. If you're bringing pork in Denmark, I think it's Denmark, but Denmark has a lot of pork exports. That's their big thing. but when you buy a Swedish pork product, it is free of blah, 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 blah. And then they have a big warning label, not caution, but this product is produced in Denmark. Therefore, it may have blah, 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 which has been known to cause blah, 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 blah. Same if you bring in Scottish beef, right? Scottish has a lot of beef imports. Scottish beef is great. So is Swedish beef. But again, it has a disclaimer saying this product is not made in Sweden. These are the things you might see on the product. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So that makes me wonder about food allergens. Do they post that on their products? And
Sure.
do you see a big difference between food allergens in the US compared to there?
Well, I will start by saying I don't have children, which, okay, that's kind of I won't go there, but it's just kind of one of those things. So I never had to deal with that, although I do have friends that have food allergens. Food allergens are just as common anywhere in the world that you travel, just like asthma, anywhere in the world you travel, just like allergies, right? So if you do have a food allergy, it can be noted on the label, but I will say this is one of the big differences, because we're kind of starting in the middle, but if you want to get into the one big difference is in comparison, States is very litigious, meaning if I stub my toe on your front doorstep, I can sue you because you should have fixed the crack after the last earthquake you had, and I fell on my face and broke a tooth. In Sweden, they would say, well, did you see the crack? No. Well, then you should have been looking down and picked up your feet. Okay.
I like that. I like that.
If you know you have a food allergy, they will ask you at a restaurant, are there any allergies? You know, blah, blah, blah. Kids carry EpiPens and stuff just like they do here because it's a serious thing. But you might not see specific warning labels like they do here because they figure that you are you're an adult at 18 years old. If you're stupid enough, if you're allergic to shellfish and you're going to eat shrimp, then hello, bring your EpiPen or tell somebody, hey, dude, I can't eat the shrimp. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's more social responsibility placed upon the individual than the individual looking for someone to blame for that. In fact, if you do that, someone's going to look at you. And it's even worse if you go to Norway. Norwegians are like the ultimate. I don't want to pick every country's different, but the Norwegians will say, unlike the Swedes, we stand up for ourselves. I had a woman say, we stand up for ourselves. We get it done. And the Swedish person would say, oh, we could get it done. We know about it, but it would be nice if we had some help. And then you'd see the Finnish person, I got it done. So it's just like if you go, those memes that you see, there's a little truth in everything, right? Like I come from Arizona, and if I come from Arizona, if I met somebody from Minnesota, they'd say, oh, cold down there, is it? Yeah. I walk to school in my bare feet, and I'd say, oh my God, I'm done. Does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You see the same thing between the different countries. They're just because the countries are small, right? But they're still on your doorstep. So I don't know. Again, I'm rambling, but that kind of gives you an idea. There's more social responsibility put on the individual, as in you are a responsible person. You need to take care of you. There are resources available. If you have an allergy, you need to ask. We will tell you and be happy to. If you have an allergic reaction that was a mistake or something happened, please tell somebody and you will get medical care immediately, right? If you're at a birthday party and you know your child is allergic to nuts, please make the phone call before you eat the birthday cake. I mean, it's that simple. I don't know how else to tell you.
It makes me wonder what the lawyer ratio in Sweden is compared to the lawyer ratio. That's what I'm saying. It's not,
No.
You have to be responsible for yourself. You're not counting on being, today I think I'm going to trip and sue somebody, because we've got that mentality.
Yeah. And that makes me sick personally.
It's illegal. It's illegal. And I agree with you. It does. Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Yeah, we're going to be bouncing around all over the place. But I personally think it is kind of common sense, for lack of a better word. It's not blaming somebody else and they owe me because of this. Take responsibility for what you did, and take care of it, move on,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
you'll see stories like that. So okay, I'll just focus on, I'm like a squirrel. I'm going to be all over the place. You see stories like that in the, I don't want to call them rag mags, but when you're going through the grocery store and you see like Taylor Swift and blah, blah, blah. And then they'll have it. Okay. Do you remember when that woman burnt herself with a hot coffee in the United States?
That's what started a lot of this crap, I'm sure.
That made the papers all over Europe. But in Sweden, it made the news and people were like, well, the coffee's hot.
Yeah.
And they were kind of laughing. They were, like, well, the coffee's hot, and they kind of were, it was almost like watching a stand-up comedian on late night. Well, today I burnt myself. But in Swedish, it's not. In Sweden, can you sue somebody? Sure. But it has to be a valid, you were drunk and you were driving, you're going to go to a jail type thing. But you wouldn't see all the different lawsuits. It's just not, it's frowned. It's just not done. It's considered garbage.
Yeah.
Ambulance chasing does not occur. How about that?
That's gotta be really weird for you, going from somewhere like that and then coming here, and it's like lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. It's just like never ending here.
Well, I mean, I grew up here, and then you leave for a while and you get used to it, and I find it refreshing that when I'm there, I mean, that it's honestly, Sweden is a duck pond. It's a very small country. It's every country has its issues. Every country has crime. Every country has blah, blah, blah. But it is a duck pond. I mean, like, I could still, I'm not in Stockholm or okay. So, but if you're in Stockholm is like San Francisco. I mean, you're not going to walk down the street by yourself as a woman in the middle of the night in a bad area. It's just stupid. Nothing's really going to happen. But in San Francisco, there'd be a higher percentage of something happening.
Sure.
It's a little bit safer.
Mm-hmm.
You're still a woman alone in a city.
Mm-hmm.
Heads up all, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have you don't have the issues with gun crime and weapon crime and people being plucked off the street, and curling parents and all this stuff, because it's still safe for a little kid to ride down the street on his bike to go to his friend's house and play in the park. And that is still, and that being said, I have not spent a lot of time in Midwestern cities. So people watching this who would say, well, gosh, I live in Minnesota and I live in a small town and that's how it is here. Awesome. I haven't experienced that here. I'm from Phoenix. Phoenix is a hot face of the sun disaster in most places, but only because it's hot and everybody's cranky. But I guess that's my experience. My mom always said, honey, if you'd met a man from Pennsylvania or from Boston, I wonder if you'd be happy living in the country there in Boston with your cows. And I'd be like, probably. I'm just trying to answer your question. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go into that. Let's go into the gun thing next. So they're trained, there's a higher percentage of, well, I wouldn't say of gun carrying, but they have their gun laws there. And they have mostly access to guns for hunting purposes, right? Is that right?
Right. And I can always bring my husband in later or to explain it. I'll try to answer what I can. So in Europe as a general, different countries have different rules for different things. Like in Germany, when I first went there, just to explain some differences, they have these, and like the bobbies in England, when you're in London, they just a few years ago started carrying guns. All they had was a baton because it's so difficult to get a gun unless you have a hunting license or a specific requirement. Can you have your grandfather's blunderbuss? I don't know, whatever. But again, I can call the Sweden and we can ask him. He specializes in this. But I mean, gun laws are different. Okay.
Mhm.
So you just don't, it's not a thing to
Mhm.
have as many weapons and be armed to the teeth. I'm going out with my guns blazing. I mean, and I'm from the West, so I grew up with a shotgun by the door for the rattlesnakes. Anybody that has, like they could be, no joke, you had, taken out the trash, just like I suppose if you live in Alaska or someplace with large animals, you're going to be aware of what's around you.
Mhm.
In Sweden, you basically need a shotgun to kill the bear, kill the moose on your patio, or that's, drunk in your apple tree, whatever you got going on. But in Germany, when I first went, there were these groups of men on a Saturday or Sunday with the German style horn, the hats, all decked out in their beer
The
drinking
lederhosen.
bodies, right? Carrying their guns, pulling and singing these songs. And I'm like, what are these people doing? Is it a holiday? And my sister said, no, those are the hunting clubs. And
Oh.
you have your license. You've got to go through a lot of training to own a gun. You have to pass rigorous tests. You have to pass shooting tests. You can't be like they go to town. When you get a gun, you don't just walk away. You have to fill out a form. This isn't you're in Sweden the same way. You have to pass a test. You have to make sure you're not a criminal or there's a reason you can't own a gun.
Mhm.
And it's held to a specific caliber. As I believe, and I'll call Patrick and have him come in if you want more details. But
Oh, it's okay.
when you're hunting, like there's no concealed carry law in Sweden, none. But you wouldn't need it. You
Mhm.
don't. That level of crime is mostly, it just doesn't, it's not there so much. I mean, it's there, but it's not there like it is here. Certainly not. And you do see it, but you see it mostly in gang related crimes. And in gang related crimes, you see it mostly in immigrant populations that are in smaller areas, like in the city of Malmo, in Stockholm, in areas where you've got a lot of bored teenagers or guys that came from war-torn countries, or the gangs are, we're not talking the Crips, this is
Mhm.
showing my age. We're not talking South Central LA,
Right.
okay, at all, at all. It's a different level,
Yeah.
lower. But they could be coming from war-torn countries, and Sweden has a good immigration program. Like they bring people in. The reason being is at one time, the third largest city in Sweden was Chicago, and most of the Swedes had left. So during the Industrial Revolution, they had to bring in people from different countries to help grow the economy, right? After the war and after World War I and going into World War II. So you have a good immigration policy. But now things have slowed down, so you don't have an integration policy, right?
Mhm.
So they're allowed in, but you have a lot of people that are, that maybe their language, even though they're required to know the language and they get education, they might not be able to find a job. It's a small country. You don't always have the I don't want to put people there's more white collar industry than there are blue collar industries.
Mhm.
And it's a small country. There aren't as many jobs for the kids that are people that want to have them. Like
Mhm.
the same thing in the United States, right?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue for, the gangs or the younger, like just hooligans causing trouble that are bored,
Yeah,
that I can
yeah,
see how that's a similar issue, different place, similar issue. But
yeah.
the job thing, we can relate to that where we are moving from a city to a
Mhm,
small town,
mhm.
you know, it's just where we live and the types of industries or lack thereof,
Yeah.
at this point in time, things change over the years. And so we
They,
get that even here where we are and move into a new area.
they
It's
do.
just
And I just am going to say, I will say my screen is really small. So if you guys are doing the blurbs it's much harder for me to read the little blurbs
Okay.
underneath on the picture.
yeah,
Um,
we'll read it to you if it's a question or anything
okay.
Okay.
or
Just,
anything somebody wants your attention
yeah,
on.
that's
Um,
okay. The other thing, sorry, I apologize, but I found this to be annoying as an American coming in. And Swedes they'd like to think this doesn't occur, but this does occur. They hire Sweden first. So if you're Swedish and you went to a Swedish university, your chances, even if you're an American, even if you're Brit, unless you're like a perfect fit for that job, right? Or you've been referred, the chances of them hiring someone from a foreign country, you're not necessarily first on the list, right? They're going to hire Swedish first, then somebody else. Yeah. And that has its pros and it has its cons. Okay. It just depends on where you are. And I know a couple Swedish friends that would say, that's not true. That's not true. And then I would say, well, let me tell you, my experience or what other friends who are also expats coming in from different countries would tell you. But that is the same thing when you travel around the world. What is familiar, and therefore it's comfortable. What is not familiar or different is often held at distance. And you see that in America too. Look at Chicago between the Italians. I don't want to get.
Oh, no, go ahead.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Remember when they wouldn't hire Irish people or the Irish people wouldn't hire the Italians? They tried to keep it. It's the same wherever you go in the world, right? So that's what I mean by integration policy.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, when you said that, I thought about, how people from Chicago, they might, and it makes me think of literally like in Chicago where areas, and this happened in Dayton too, areas have different nationalities and they form a community within like a neighborhood. They form that and they stick together. And that's the only way you'll find a Turkish market, like we'll be in this one neighborhood.
Yeah, because it's familiar and it's comfortable and you have friends who speak your language and your heritage. Right.
I think that's the way it used to be a lot. Even when we were in Dayton, we had the Czechoslovakian neighborhood, you had the Irish, you had the Jewish, you had, the African American, you had all these different, and everybody stayed to their areas. It was kind of like, I'm not going to say gangs, but people just felt safe.
Neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That's changed a lot. Everything's becoming more homogenous. In Sweden, it's not so, we're talking, when I say it might be 1 or 2 blocks where the kids who are all from Turkey or from wherever, Germany or whatever, they might form friendships in school and stay more together. That's more what it's like, because they don't really they have some neighborhoods in the bigger cities where you might have a couple blocks where there'd be more prevalent, like you're saying, but it's much more integrated than that. Because they brought everybody in. But I'm not joking when I say at one time, Chicago was the third largest city in Sweden. And just about everybody in Sweden has a cousin, a brother, or aunt, or uncle that lives in Phoenix, that lives in.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, they're everywhere. Swedes they're like in the woodwork. They're everywhere you want to be. And I was just watching a show a few months ago, and I didn't know that, a few weeks ago, actually. And I didn't know this, but the first settlement, I think in the United States, this is even before, was Swedish. And I want to say it was in Delaware or something. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And I had to look it up. I said, did you know this? I'm asking my Swede. Did you? And he's like, no, I didn't know that. So
interesting.
Yeah. And everybody speaks. TV is mostly American, although they have Swedish programs, but most of it is American TV with Americans talking and then Swedish subtitles.
Oh, wow.
Whereas if you go to Germany, they dub the voices, and that's weird.
Yes, it is.
And then you can have English subtitles. So it depends. And in Italy, it's all Italian, and then they dub the weird. It's weird. It's traveling from different countries. But it's a good way to learn the language because you're hearing English and you're reading the subtitles. So that's always good.
Yeah, I can't read fast enough for those subtitles, though. It's, when they're talking, and then they sound like they said 800 words to, you know, and then 5 words pop on the screen. I'm like, which was what?
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about education. Okay, so one of the things you said was they learn in school multiple languages, and they in kindergarten start with English in addition. So what I think you said as time goes on, secondary school Mandarin and another. Walk me through how the language works there in the
Okay, good.
education
I
system.
don't have children in the education, but I have a lot of friends that have kids, and being there for as long as I was. You start off, they have preschool like everybody else, preschool or Montessori like they do here. And then you start with kindergarten. Now the grades run slightly different in Europe than they do here. So it's not grade school, high school, college. It's a little bit different, but the same idea, right? Just different age gaps. But when you start in kindergarten, that's your first year of school, they generally start with Swedish training and you're learning English together, right? Just like some of the schools here, like if you go to maybe a charter school or something that's bilingual, they have those here with Spanish and English, or they have different ones you can sign up. They're teaching, like there's one down the street that you'll learn, you know, whatever language you want, you'll learn as you're going. But in Sweden, it's mandatory. So it's been that way. So everybody learns English and Swedish together all the way through school, right? And you get tested on all the way through school. Then when you get to a certain age, and I want to say, I'm trying to think of the equivalent, 6th or 7th grade. It'd be 6th or 7th grade, because they start a little bit later. So kids are a little bit older there, like 1 year older than we would be starting up. Then you also have an option. So you've learned English, or you're learning English, right? You have Swedish. Okay, fine. And then now you're starting to, then you have an option. And it used to be just German. But now, because they're doing so much business with China, that and you can still learn German, but the majority, because of the Chinese influence coming into industry and coming in around the world, and the job markets, which are opening for Europeans, there is a lot of transfer between the Asian countries. And it's the same, you know, when you're looking at most of Europe and Australia as well. So they're learning Mandarin in school. So you're learning Mandarin's becoming more popular and outweighing. So now kids are usually fluent. A lot of people are fluent. Well, everybody's fluent in English, Swedish. And then most people speak a little bit of German because you travel, right? Danish and Norwegian are very similar. So that's not hard to figure out when you're traveling. And then you have the Mandarin. So a lot of kids are learning Mandarin now because it increases their job, their marketability when they're older. And because it's a white collar, more of a white collar, and we're moving into more of a technological society, it is more beneficial for them to have that language skill, as it is in the United States. So, you know, my sister's a linguistics, a doctorate of linguistics. My aunts and uncles are all educators. They're all professional teachers and worked in the universities. And so they would say the same thing. Like this, unfortunately, we're going more technological, but this is good to advance. You know, the better educated you are, the better off you are.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes, does that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's awesome that they do that, because from everything I've heard, starting it at a younger age to learn an additional language is so much easier to grasp. And I would love to know a different language, but I really don't. I know some American Sign Language, but I personally
That's another language. That's another language. It counts.
But I personally don't feel like I may not have that ability. You know, I don't know how easy it would be for me to learn another language.
I don't have the ability either. I'm just going to tell you right now. Some people have it and some people don't. And because I'm saying, it makes it sound like everybody's fluency is the same. Everybody's fluent in English, yes, because it's just part of society. But the other languages, it's the same here. Like you could have a Spanish speaking, maybe your parents are Hispanic, or my grandparents were German. I grew up hearing German in the household, right? So when my sister moved to Germany, when we're in Germany, it's easier for me to pick up on it. I am very good at reading different languages.
Okay.
But as my sister says, Susie, Do not speak.
Oh,
She's like, do not say, it is an embarrassment. She said, I will take over. So my time in Germany, when I was out in the streets with my sister, who is fluent, she lived there for 20 years too, got her doctorate and was a professor in the University of Göttingen. She speaks Hofdeutsch, I speak German. Lucky you. I can read it and I can get to the bus stop and I can get a taxi and I'm fine. And in Sweden, the problem I ran into is being an English speaker and being an American with more of an outgoing personality. I'm more of a, she's fun. She's like the party favor. Let's go talk to her. So they all want to practice their English to learn Swedish. This is where my friends were not helpful. And as an adult too, you want to communicate and have your thoughts heard and understood.
Yeah.
You're talking like a 4-year-old. It doesn't go over well.
Oh,
So
that's a great point.
We'll just take it in English. And I'm like, all right, fine. So then everybody around me would speak English. And I mean, I can follow a Swedish conversation if it's relatively confined. But if you put me in a room with a dinner party or something and everybody's talking, I'm like, ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to catch up because I have to listen. Obviously I was there for many years. I got better, right?
Yeah.
And I can do it. But it's definitely a learning curve. And then when you have your friends saying, also the language, the country is small, but everybody has a very distinct dialect depending on where they're coming from. So if you're from New York, you don't talk the same way as you're from Alabama. If you're from Alabama, you don't have that West Coast or wherever you might be. It might be a different, and the words are slightly pronounced different. But in Sweden, it's so condensed. So you could be from Stockholm or Linköping where we lived, or you could be from up north. And I could just be sitting around with my girlfriends and she's not saying it right. I'm like, I'm saying it the way Maria says it. Maria, you don't say it right. And then all of a sudden you have all this. And then they're teaching you these words that you should never know or speak in public. And they think it's a hoot. And let's get Susie to say canoodle-roofs, have her call the cab. And let's let her tell, that. And then the cab, so yeah, it's a whole level of entertainment that you don't want to get into. And because Sweden has different words that look like English words. It's not, like German where every word is 4 miles long and you're trying to spit it out of your mouth.
German's the language, like every time you either look at it or they say it, you think they're yelling at you, like they're angry at you. And you're like, what? And he's like, I love you.
Very assertive. Yeah. It's not necessarily, the language of love.
Exactly.
And we joke about that. And God forbid you're driving on the Autobahn and you have to read one of those signs at 75 miles an hour. And you're like, what the hell? And they don't give you warrant. Like you get a sign and you better know where you're going.
Oh,
Otherwise you're screwed. But in Sweden, it's the language is fun to play with, and they call it Spanglish. Spanglish, because you can intertwine different words, and it does sound. It's not. Everybody says it's difficult, and to some extent, it's just memorization is different, and they have the umlauts and the little so you pronounce some of the words a little bit differently, and that part is a little challenging for an English tongue to figure out how to make work.
Yes.
But you're not spitting on each other like when you're talking German. So,
I know we're jumping around and that's fun. Okay. That's how we do it here. But I want to go to one of the things you described for Sweden was state of the art, and I just, so without looking at pictures, it's painting this picture in my head that everything's new and bright and fresh and trendy. And, so like say we're shopping or maybe even how the buildings are designed, it just seems like everything has a young, fresh look to it is the way that I kind of saw it. But like we were talking about, so say shopping, I wondered about like here, you can go to a grocery store or like a Walmart or whatever, one that sells more than groceries, and you can buy cookware there, or you can buy cookware at, a store specifically designed for that, obviously. Or you can buy cast iron, at an antique shop, and I think you said that there were flea markets and antique shops there.
Oops. I'm losing picture in and out, just so you guys know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So they do shop, they have flea markets and antique shops there. Is that right?
That was a long question, so I'll try to answer. The answer is yes to all of those. So
Okay.
it's by so the buildings itself, especially in the older, I mean, you have to remember these are thousands of years old.
That's
right?
fine.
So when you go to Georgetown, I think it's the oldest place, or back east, and you're sitting in a bar in downtown Georgetown. This is on the East Coast. I think that was the oldest building I'd been into when I visited back east. It was 250 years old, and I'm like, wow.
That's
And
awesome.
then you go to Germany, or you go to Sweden, and the church we got married in was built in 1173.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of the downtown areas and buildings, and before that church was built, what was there, you can trace it all the way back to like Neolithic places that were special to people for some reason. Maybe there was a tree that they liked, and that tree became a circle of standing stones. And then the standing stones were made to create a stone structure. And then the Vikings came, and then Christianity came, and then Martin Luther came. So things change, but you have eons of history, right?
Mhm.
So when I'm saying that everything is new and technological, some of the buildings might look very old. And especially when you're in downtown, the older parts that weren't, well, Sweden was never bombed during the war, but say you went to Dresden, where everything had to be rebuilt, but they rebuilt it to look exactly the same, or parts of Frankfurt or parts of London, same thing, where they were, everything was, when it was rebuilt, was not necessarily Westminster Abbey quality, right? But it was built to the time frame in which it was destroyed and rebuilt. Does that make sense? So when I say that it's techno and new, you could have you could buy a home at a subdivision outside of, say, Linköping, where we live, and it would look pretty much like any home that you would build here. Higher roof load to handle snow, right? And slightly different interiors, only based on the cultural structural differences. And by that, I just mean like they might have wooden door sills, right? Or they might have radiators versus, an air conditioning unit like I do here, just because that's something different. That's a cultural standard there. Attached garages versus a detached, that might be different. So you can find that there all the time. But then when you're in the cities, or you're in an older part, you'll have a building that looks really beautiful. It was built from anywhere from the 1600s to the 2022, whatever. So there's a real broad range. And then from that, some buildings have elevators, some are older, they don't. You take the stairs. Some have old school bomb shelters in the bottom, right? Where you still have bomb shelters and stuff. And then you get to the interior design, that's what I meant by techno savvy. A lot of times you'll hear Nordic, or you see Scandinavian style. Okay. Well, Scandinavian style can be anywhere from your grandma and grandpa's beautiful red farm with the white trim, which is where it came from originally, before it came to the United States, because they only had ox blood to paint the buildings, right? And you still had the stone stuff, and you have the oak furniture and pine furniture, and you still have that in Sweden, and it's venerated. People keep it, and if you are lucky enough to have an old farmhouse like that, it goes through the family, and you keep it. You don't go inside and tear out the wall. Well, some people do. I wouldn't. I'd keep it. I like that.
Yes.
Right? But then when you go home to your apartment in the city, you have, well, they don't do white walls so much. They love wallpaper. But but by wallpaper, it's not, little frilly wallpaper like you see. It's not chintz. Sometimes you see those design shows in London, you go, oh my God. But this is like, big flowers. My girlfriend, when you close her bathroom door, she has a chimpanzee sitting smoking a cigar staring at you. when the door closes. So you're not
Funny.
and then you turn on the light and you get, and if you've had a couple cocktails and she doesn't tell you, it's discerning.
Oh
But
boy.
there's a level of humor too. But they have,
Yes.
but that being said, anybody that's been into a Scandinavian design store, a Copenhagen store, a George Jensen store, an IKEA, right? When they're showing you the way it looks, I've heard people say, well, who lives like this? Swedes do. You know, it's very, usually the buildings are smaller, your areas are smaller, they're not as broad and spread out. You have a lot of really good storage ideas. It's common to take your shoes off. It's traditional to take your shoes off when you enter a home. So you leave you have house shoes and you leave when you've got a dinner party or something, or, you know, more than 5 friends. I don't know. I can't describe to you the shoes in the doorway. It's just, you know, a disaster of shoes. And God forbid you wore black loafers, right? Because so did 25 other people. But normally you put them, and if you're the first to leave, your shoes will still be there. If you are the last to leave late at night, you know, God knows whose coat, whose shoes. And if you've been drinking, you know, a lot of times you'll be like, hi. Can somebody tell me if, you know, did they go home with, you know, that sort of thing? But there's a lot of good design features. And by that, I mean it. So everything is very state of the art. They really pride themselves on state of the art bathrooms, state of the art lighting, state of the art surfaces, right? And it's when you go into someone's home, it's very subtle. And you asked about pots and pans. Gas is not as common there. Like, I like a gas range, and I have one here, but it's mostly electric. And now they have the induction ovens and things like that. And that is really up and coming. And the integrated, where you see stuff where there's the appliances are built in, but they're almost like touch it, you know, like that. But if you look at an IKEA catalog, it's designed by Swedish people. Just look, you want to see what a Swedish home looks like? There you go.
Very contemporary.
So it takes hours upon hours to put a Swedish home together on the inside, right?
With little tiny screws.
Yes.
And a little stupid wrench. Yes. And people joke about it. And the thing is that if you're able to afford, I don't say if you're able to afford, but if you don't have to buy IKEA, it came put together. You know, but somebody has to carry it up the stairs to get it, you know. So that was a total shaggy dog. There's not that much difference. Honestly, Sweden always reminded me of Minnesota with a techno edge, right? So everybody's hometown, low key, hanging out at the pub, sitting in the square. But when you say, hey, does anybody want to do anything? I was so surprised. The first time I remember that I was sitting with a group of friends and we were trying to plan something, and somebody said, hey, how about this day? And it was like watching gunslingers go in for their phones, whip them out. I kid you not. Like a group of people whip out their phones, not only their personal phone, but their work phone, cell phones. The Swedes love their cell phones. And then they're all checking the dates, like looking at the date. I got it. Ching, ching, ching. Back in the pockets. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. They love, Sony Ericsson is Sweden. So, you know, that was like 2006 when I did that. It's still the same, but now people are, you know, but you're never far from a cell phone. You're never far from, it was just funny. That was another one of the things, like, I thought, wow, awesome. I've never seen that happen before. But literally, like, gunslingers, like, it was almost like I timed it. And I think I said something at the time, and they looked surprised. I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that. And they were laughing, you know, like, don't you do this?
You can get to it the fastest.
Yeah.
So get-togethers, you said that, you know, they're very social, you know, friends like to get together and spend time together. And you talked about, like drinking and driving, that's not really a thing there. And they have very high punishments, right? Or zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance in all of Europe. Well, I shouldn't say that. Italy is its own little special world. But most of the countries have Europe overall has extremely good public transit, whether it's a tram, whether it's a subway, cabs. Usually things are pretty condensed. So most people live in populated areas, right? Or just outside. Can you still take your own car? Yeah, there are parking garages. Yes. Can you park? Yes. But in Sweden, there are zero tolerance laws for drinking and driving, meaning if you're stopped, you will lose your license. They will impound your car or can impound your car if there was an accident involved and or jail time, but you will lose your license, right? So nobody drinks and drives. You don't have to. I mean, you can walk your bike home if that was the issue, right?
Yeah.
Which we've done. You know, you're too drunk to ride your bike. You certainly don't want to be behind the wheel. Europeans also tend to party. I don't want to say party more, but social drinking is more common, right? So they're not doing the college. Well, they do. They don't normally drink. Like Americans kind of tend to have a drink during the week, like maybe have a beer afterward. Swedes usually save it till Friday night and then they party the weekend and then, you know, they eat pizza and lay in the couch on Sundays. The younger Swedes, older livers don't do that. Younger livers do that. But you do get off work. It's called after work. And then you get the general text saying, hey, after work at the pub down. And it's very, a lot of outdoor cafes, everybody's outdoors, especially when it's summertime, because you're inside in the wintertime. So you park your bike. They have this huge row after row of, you know, bike parking. You have to remember where you parked it. Row after row of bike parking, or you can take a cab or whatever. And you just meet your friends for a couple drinks after work. And then you go home, or maybe you get together and go out for dinner. But most times you cook or eat at home, unless you're having a party. And then if you go to a friend's house, if you're able to leave, like by cab or group cab or tram or bus, you do. But if you're a little further out in the country, or away from a city center, where say the train only runs till midnight, right? And a lot of you, they always have guest rooms. Everybody has a rollout. Again, IKEA, there's a reason those couches fold up and the bed comes out, right? There's a reason you have extra, because everybody's crashing out. And it's like having an adult. You just all spend the night, you know, and then the next morning you just have breakfast and when you're able to drive, you drive home. We have a couple of friends who are police officers and they bring the thing.
Oh gosh.
And they have, who can blow? I'll try it. Who wants to drive? Okay. And they'll just for fun, they'll say, what are you blowing? Are you still blowing a 1 or are you blowing a 0? And I always thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And a shaggy dog story, but these are different things that you don't realize. Like when you go out to a dinner party, someone has to, if you don't know that you're going to be spending the night, you need to know you got to bring your toothbrush, right? They don't care if you sleep in your clothes or not, but I mean, usually you're going to bring something to sleep in and you're going to have, it just, it's different, but it's part of it. It's part of, it's a slower pace, culturally relaxed atmosphere. And it as an American of, what do you mean we're not going home? But I want to, no, we're not. We're going to walk. I hate sensible shoes. My husband used to say it. He's like, really? And then but most women will just carry a bag with their tennis shoes or their walkers, and they bring their heels. But you don't want to wear your heels in a person's house because you're going to hurt their flooring. So then, I have a pair of bunny slippers. We'd have, and we'd have parties, and they do have a thing about like the guys wear funky socks. That's the thing. Like when you're having you can usually tell, whose feet it is. If you're looking down, who's wearing what socks. It's a thing. It's a small cultural thing, but it's fun.
That's cute.
It makes it sound like we're a bunch of 3-year-olds, but we're not.
I like that.
It's
I'm okay with that.
It's a different way of life. It's a different way of life. And most people entertain at home anyway. So, you learn pretty quick about.
Mhm. Let's talk about work. So
Okay.
there are a few things I want to talk about that we have mentioned before, but on like your work week is 40 hours. Do they have like a 40-hour full-time work week, or do they expect more hours, or how does that work?
That is one of the biggest differences. Swedes don't live to work. They work to live. So Americans kill themselves.
Mhm.
And, it's a rat race and it's expensive and you can't, and Sweden it's set up to not function like that. So do you work 40 hours a week? Yes.
Mhm.
But some jobs do, some jobs don't. It depends on the job you have. Teachers are still teachers, right? Doctors are still doctors. Nurses are still nurses. But they have rules and requirements allowing capping working hours depending on the stress level specifically of the job, right?
Mm.
And then they have other jobs that you have a 40-hour work week, but you have more flex time. And by flex time, meaning that if you have a meeting, you're required to be there. Most people, especially after COVID, do Zoom, right? Because it's easier. If you have an early morning meeting, but you've got childcare in the morning or your kid's sick, that okay. It's hard to talk about that without talking about some really good programs that they do have that are built
Yeah.
into the system, right?
Yeah.
But in general, yes, jobs are jobs. The police still work. How many, what is it? If you're EMT, what is it? 3 days on, 2 days on, or something like that, 4 days off. They still do that. So that is all the same. But the level of pressure, unless you're applying it yourself, or unless maybe you work for maybe in a more stress-ridden company, which I can't think of one off the top of my head. But there are a lot more holidays. They're a lot more forgiving. Everybody when you have a job, you get 4 weeks automatic vacation every year. There are a lot of what they call red days, which are typically they are not necessarily national days, like national holidays, but they're church holidays held over, right? They're called red days. So and red days usually fall on a Friday or Saturday, which is highly convenient, especially if you can time it in, so you get a lot of really nice week long or 5-day, you can go off. My husband, when we left, we had 7 weeks of vacation, not including holidays. The day after Christmas, the day before, the day after Easter, the day before. Easter usually falls the day. Midsummer of all, but you have a lot of different holidays. So that was weird to get used to because I was used to working like, oh no, I'll just do it. Like, no. We take lunch. We take what's called fika. Twice a day. Everybody quits working. They get up, they go get a coffee, they get something sweet, they chat, and then they go back to work. And that's common. In America, you're eating lunch at your desk just to try to get out of the office by 5. No, it's a different way of life. That part is the hardest part to adjust to. It was the hardest part for me to wind down,
Yeah.
to get there and to adapt. And then coming back, it smacks you upside the head.
Yes.
Like nobody's business, because you realize that and this is where you get into a quality of life issue. If you asked me in a heartbeat, and most people would, I have childcare, I have a flexible work week. I can call in sick when I want because I know I'm going to get paid regardless. You can't abuse the system. It's set up with boundaries, right? But it's not like here, right? They don't go to work sick. They don't want you there. If you show up at work sick and unless you're, you have some reason to be there, your boss is going to say, man, work from home today. If you can, not all jobs are the same, right? But if you can, okay. So again, speaking in generalities, but
Yeah.
it's a much more human way of existence. And some people would, I guess, if you live in a small town in America and you have a boss that's like, hey man, I don't, your kid is sick, you stay home today, we got you covered. I'm sure there are places like that in America that function that way. But living in a big city like I always have versus living in a medium-sized city and going to a culture that is not built on having to kill your neighbor to get ahead, right? Makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a Swedish word called, again, this is a hard concept for an American. Americans have a hard time. It's called lagom, Lagom, lagom. And that means not too much, not too little, just right. Just right. And Swedes strive for lagom in everything, in life, in business, in play, in work. And that is the biggest difference. In Norwegian, it's called hygge, Hygg. And you see every now and then you'll see an article that says, the art of hygge or the art of lagom, just meaning it's enough. It's enough. Because everybody's equal.
Yeah, I've definitely struggled with that. I've usually worked my butt off. Like, it's hard for me to stop. And that's the way I've always been when it comes to work life. Other than what I'm doing now, which I have my own business and I absolutely love what I do. And I work a lot of hours, but I enjoy really every minute of it. Prior to that, of my whole work history, what I would have considered my dream job, I loved. It just fit me, and it fit all my interest for my profession, for what I studied. Now, I worked through every single lunch break except maybe a handful, and when I did not work through my lunch break, it's because I made myself join a group of women, female friends, for a walk around downtown. Okay. I had to stop and make myself. I constantly felt like I did not have enough time to finish what it was that I was doing, to the point of working up to 7 days a week for many weeks. I was overloaded.
Exhausted.
It was too much, but I was so dedicated to getting the things done, and there was no way I could get less work assigned to me. And so, I've seen a lot of the things that, as an American, seeing places understaffed, I know what that's like as that worker, being overworked or not feeling like you have another choice. And to see people jump those people, to see consumers just like, you're not doing this fast enough, or why aren't you giving me attention? That drives me crazy, and I feel so bad. I know what it's like.
It burns people out.
Understaffed. Yeah. And it's like, you have no idea. Please be patient with that person.
Well, yeah. And here in the United States, you're raised from a young age, especially as a male, that you need to work. I've done the 12-hour, 60-hour week, jobs and everything. And I got to a point where, and I was actually preaching this earlier to the couple we were with, that, we get to a point where we work so many hours and
lost everybody. There we are.
Oh, wow.
You froze up for a little bit, so I don't know if I heard what you said or not. Sorry.
We get to a point, I was talking with a couple earlier today, and we get to a point in our lives where we work so much and we work so many hours because we feel that's what we're supposed to do. We want the life, we want to have the money. A lot of people aren't that way. I'm not that person that's like, I need the money. I'm the person that wants to enjoy life. And I tell people, when they want to move our retirement age up to, I think, 72 or something like that. Right now it's 62, early retirement, 65. So I think to myself, how many people at 62, 65 years old are still physically able to get out and do stuff that they've always wanted to do? Not a lot of people are like that. So I tell everybody, if you have the ability and you can just not work for a few years and then eventually you'll get your retirement, but try to save out that money just so you can make sure while you're healthy, you can get out and do those things. And I think that needs to be that needs to be something here in the United States that needs to happen. That we're all angry all the time because most of us have to work too many damn hours a week
to just survive. Yeah.
To just survive. And then we just sit around and, I'm too tired to do anything. I've got kids. I've got to take my kids to do this now, or I've got to go do this. And I'm so tired of doing it. It's got to get to a point where people say, okay, I know for a while they were talking, doing the 4 12-hour days, and then shutting down. Great idea. I think it's an absolutely great idea. But if you'll notice, most companies won't do it because they want you there as much as they can get you there so they can make their profit. And it's crazy.
The society is built differently.
Yeah.
Okay. America is built on the pioneer spirit where you had to work hard to keep yourself alive and then to be successful. And because it's a capitalist society, supposedly the system is set up, the harder you work, the more successful you will be, the better off you will be, which is no longer functional and with this many people living in the country, in my opinion, without getting political. Okay. The same scenario, there are people that overwork themselves in Sweden too. Depends on your job. If you're a nurse, you're still going to work nursing hours, but the difference is that there are laws on how many hours you can work. And then combined with a red day. No one works on a red day.
Okay.
Like, unless you own a 7-Eleven, you're not working on a red day. Unless you're a heart surgeon or delivering a baby, you're not working on a red day. Okay. So the breaks are built in. And my grandfather came on my dad's side. My great grandpa came from Germany. He was a chair maker, a furniture maker. And my dad would tell me this later. He always, Grandpa always used to say that when I came, in Germany, they would always say, work slower, take it easy, do a better job, And here he said that they were always work harder, faster, faster, faster. And it drove my great grandpa nuts. But that is the difference. That, in a nutshell, is the difference. And that is because the culture is structured differently, right? So again, I'm not saying which one is better, because for some people it works to, but I agree with you. Americans tend to push until they hit the wall, and then there's no help, and they either die or they've missed half their life because they were too busy doing that.
Absolutely.
In Europe as a whole, you don't see that. But the culture is different. Are there still people that want to get ahead and drive the fanciest Mercedes, blah, 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 blah? Yeah, and they do. Great for them. But as a whole in society, wealth is viewed differently. There's monetary wealth and then there's life wealth. Right? And in Sweden specifically, that lagom, are you rich in life quality? Are you rich in money? And you don't, because of the way that the system is set up, it's still a free, what did my husband, he described it better. It's still a capitalist free market society, right? But they also have a really robust social welfare system. Okay. So people in the United States might say, well, it's not communist, people figure it out. No, it's socialism. Okay. The United States post office is socialist. The school system in the United States is socialist. You're paying taxes into a program designed to care for you. They're caring for your kids. They're delivering your mail. A health insurance company, the company that you pay money into that's designed to carry you and protect you, is by terms socialist, right? It's a social security, right? It's a social system, a social network set up to protect the populace as a whole, paid for by public funds, right? That's the difference. So Sweden still has a capitalist society. I have my own company, just like you. I was burnt out. I had to make money, and I'm like, I'm just going to open my own home care company. And I did, knock on wood. I was successful. It gave me what I needed to do as far as time, and I could do what I wanted to do. And I was at a point in my life. That's great. Okay. My husband had a good job. He was with the government. All right. So that's fine. So you still have that. You still have entrepreneurship. But in our taxes, we get more days off, sick days. We have the 4-week standard. We have red days. Childcare. If you're a woman and you're going to have a baby, both parents get up to 2 years, 80% income. Can't be fired. You're going to get 80% income for 2 years, husband and or wife. And from the day of your birth, like Patrick says, this does not follow the income increases. Every child gets the equivalent of $125 from birth to the year of 18 every month for that time frame. It's a token, right? But it's there. Okay, it's there. If your child is sick and you have to call into work, that does not count against your sick days. It's a child. It's just a given. My kid is sick. I need to stay home. Okay.
Wow.
You have full paid education all the way through the university, including upper education, doctoral, attorney, everything paid for. Healthcare. Now you can have private insurance. A lot of people do. I want to be able to have, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted a specialist, if you wanted to have additional healthcare, you could, just like here, you could have healthcare. But otherwise it comes with it. It's like having Humana. You go down, you call your doctor and say, hi, I'm coming in. They say that'll be $20, token fee. You get your checkup like you do here. You go in. I mean, just like you do here. I don't feel good. I'm going to the doctor, $20. My husband had heart surgery, all right, to treat AFib, which you have irregular heartbeat. He was in the hospital for 3 days. You know what it cost us? I was terrified. When I found out, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to, that's not going to, we'll never get out from underneath that. Heart surgery, 3 days in the hospital at some of the best hospitals in the world. You asked about that in your notes, Erica. We paid 250 krona, $25.
No.
Wow.
I broke my ankle. Dog pulled me down in the woods. I crawl to the car, get in the car, call my free.
Oh my gosh.
You asked about, are the levels the same? Okay. So you don't have, when you're working, when Americans are working like here, we have to, I worry too. I'm back in the United States. I have to pay taxes. I've got my mom to care for, right? My husband is working. I stay home to help with my mom. I'm not putting any money right now into not that everybody needs to know this, but it's hard to, you have to struggle to get by in America. In Sweden, you don't have that, right? Because you have a social care network. There are systems set up. You've got daycare for the kids. You have your 2 years. You have free education, and you have included healthcare. Are there problems? Sure, there are problems in everything. If your knee, you need a new knee. Just like here, how long do you have to wait if you have a knee that doesn't bother you? If you call United Healthcare and you say, we'll schedule you, we'll get you in 4 weeks, we'll get you in 5 weeks, right? It's the same thing in Sweden, except they don't charge you for the knee. You have a child. Your child needs ICU.
Wow.
Right? So I'm not trying to say which is better. It's just a different system. So, and then everybody says, well, are you paying higher taxes? Not anymore. It's actually more expensive to live here. We've run the numbers because we're like, we've run the numbers. So unless you're in a higher tax bracket, because once you get to a certain level, they tax the rich, right? So it's not the trickle down economic type thing. It's more of a different, where the higher the income, the more you pay in taxes to help support the system, so that everyday people don't have to pay the higher taxes, but everybody pays their share. And I'm sure there are ways for people to hide it. My accountant was adept at hiding his, so I'm sure that there are other ways of hiding. So it's not that different. It's just that the social structure is set up differently. But then when you compare that, it's a small country. It's the size of California. There are only 10 million people. You could never do that. It'd have to be state by state by state in the United States. But the difference, like I said, the difference in quality and you're still stressed from your job. People still carry stress. People still have child care, family care, time issues. But when you want to compare apples to apples, it's an apple to an orange.
Yeah.
It is an apple to an orange. And that is the hardest part. So I don't know. I don't know. Being an American, when I came back, literally from the time you get out of the airport, it takes me, even when I would come home for holidays, just driving down the road, I'd be like, oh my God, even people are driving to kill you.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're worried that you don't have enough car insurance. And you still have to pay for your car insurance in Sweden, right? Mm-hmm. You still have dental care. You pay for your own dental care, or you can have dental insurance that's not as expensive as it is here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. It makes me sound, I'm sure there are people going, oh my God, but it's just a different way of life. And that's Sweden. Every country's different. Every country has its own issues. And if you read the Swedish paper, you'll see that they are focused on the environment more. They're focused on, Erica, you asked, are they still teaching writing in school? Not as much, but they're going back to it.
Okay.
Because they were one of the countries that pioneered giving laptops to all the kids. A kid is assigned a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And, every year the kid gets, you don't have to buy it, they're assigned it. And then they do their homework on that. But they were learning the ability to write. And now they've done studies where, because they were learning the ability to write, they felt that it was affecting them in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So now I guess they're taking a step away from that, kind of like they are here. And they're teaching more, how to write. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I ran away with that. I need to be quiet for a while. But
I've heard that here that their information retention is higher if they're handwriting versus digital. Let's say typing.
I think so too. Oh, that's sorry. They also. What I apologize. I was talking.
I personally can attest to that. I had a traumatic brain injury, and I've taken so many notes, but I went through specialized testing and found out that I need repetition for me, and and I can say it's definitely helped me through the years. So, but handwriting, I can see a difference.
I don't know how kids can just look at something and I agree with you. I think you need hands-on. But in school, when I would write my notes for a test or something like that, it always helped reinforce what I was learning. And what are they going to do when the grid goes down? I'm sorry. How are you going to speak?
Yeah.
Now you're talking my world there, yeah.
It'll be like Pictionary. You're drawing little stick figures trying to get by in life. I mean, what are you going to do? But it's the same way. If you want to follow Finnish schools, Finnish has one of the highest education levels in the world. And if you look at how they their schools and things like if you just Google Finnish elementary schools or Finnish education system, because they don't have the long hours and the amounts of homework, but it's the way that they do it. They have, like they do in Sweden, half the classes are held outside so that the kids can absorb nature and learn and grow that way, and it enhances the education somehow. And then having different languages. I don't know. I don't have kids, but you see the differences. So if you want to find out what a future trend in education would be, look to the Finnish educational models.
I like that.
And that kind of trickles down into the European model. And then the European models may or may not make it to the United States. Because again, different cultures. But the Finns are extraordinarily educated. I mean, almost all of them speak 4 or 5 languages. It's a very small country. They have to stay on their toes, given their position in the world geopolitically. So they're not slow. They're not slow.
Back to the healthcare. One of our viewers from Belgium, she said that they have a brilliant healthcare system too. Yeah,
they do. Yeah. You should ask her about her language. That is a very difficult language. Good Dutch.
I'll take your word.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't want to offend. I don't want to
So
say anything. It's difficult.
I asked you about like our welfare system compared to Sweden. Is that stipend you mentioned? Is that like you were talking about, say the $125 a month
For kids.
Is that what you're referring to, or something like that?
I don't know that it would be classified like that. That's more of a child care token.
Okay.
They don't really have. I mean, they do. The system is just set up differently. So people do get money from the state to get back on their feet, or if they're not able to work, they do receive either housing and or small income so that they're not starving or they're not on the street. But there are a lot of social programs to help support that otherwise.
Okay.
So those programs are there. Again, it's a small country. It's not, you don't have the levels of, which is for the wealthiest country in the world, the United States, it is a travesty to have as many homeless people as we have in this country. It is
Yeah.
terrible. And the state of my husband's a veteran. I mean, he always says that. He said it's just horrendous. It is horrendous that the people that protect this country are
don't give me
protected. And it makes you tear up. But that is another one of the things you notice the minute you get off the plane, right? You just, it's just not there, I guess.
Yeah.
And you see it because I live in a big city. I see it more than if I live in a small town. So that is more noticeable too. Again, I'm not in the Midwest. I've never lived in a small area or a smaller city in the United States. I've always lived in big cities and then a smaller city in Europe. But even the biggest cities in Europe are nowhere near, at least in Sweden, nowhere near the size of what like Phoenix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about childcare and you mentioned elder care. What's the difference there they have benefits for elder care?
They do, as far as that. So they have, this is a little bit different. I wish we had it here. So you can have your parents at home and be a caregiver at home, and you can get like they still have, the biggest difference is the health care, right? Because your insurance is covered. And then they have social nets. So they have what's called home chance, help, hemtjänst. And if you're of a certain age, you just, in the municipality that you have those things available to you. So if you need a walker, it's provided. If you need a scooter, it's provided. If you need meals brought to your house, it's provided. If you need social checks, you get that. They do have retirement communities, like I don't want to say rest home, but it can go from anywhere from your own individual apartment with an on-site cafeteria like they have here to being a full-on 24/7 care. But that is covered by the state. When I say the state, I mean your taxes, right? Whereas every state in the United States is different. In Arizona, we don't have that. You have to be able to sign up for palliative care with hospice. And then I don't get money for taking care of my mom. I have to hire people to come in if we can afford it, and then what happens if she needs extended care? Let's hope she can afford it, because in Arizona, it's a no help state.
Oh, wow.
But then there are other states that do have help. So it depends on which state in the United States you live in, but it's kind of cradle to grave. And then the other thing that's becoming more common, because it's trendy in the United States and it'll become trendy there, especially in Arizona, there in California, they have a lot of retirement communities, like the big fancy ones, where you have a lifestyle community.
Yes.
And the biggest challenge is BD. I mean, I'm not kidding. That is
true. Yep, that's true. True.
It is true. And I think it's funny. And when you spend time, like with mom, they're all zipping around cocktail hour on their scooters, smoking a joint, having fun. But they're the original hippies. So, all right, good for them.
That's true.
Enjoy your later years, people. But the difference is here, like that's not legal in Sweden. Certainly, the medical marijuana and stuff you can get, but it's not legal like it is here. I don't care about that. Like I said, let them enjoy life. But they don't have in Sweden. You have basic that's covered by the state, by the municipality, and then you can also have private ones if you want to go to a fancier retirement community. But it's not really a thing yet. It's starting to become a thing. Most people just retire at their summer houses and then, I don't know, move into a small little care facility and that's it.
I've heard about it in America, how we used to live with generations in one household and then we stepped away from that. I've heard that it's coming back, with the cost of housing and everything.
And it's a good thing. That's a good thing, actually. Sorry. I believe in generational. The grandparents take care of the kids. The kids, I think it works. And I interrupted you again. I'll shut up now and be silent.
No, you're fine. No, I just wondered if in Sweden, if that's something that they've ever done or that they still do, or, how that compares to America.
It isn't experience common because it's more affordable. Life is more affordable in general, so you don't necessarily have to. Home ownership is still expensive, but they have different lending programs, so more people own. I shouldn't say that because depends. It depends. I'm going to answer it that way. It depends on your family. Some families have a strong family structure, just like it does here. Some parents are like, there's not a chance in hell I'm going to live with my child. Go. And other people are like, come on in, we have a big old farmhouse. Come and live with us, it'll be fine. I'm going to say it just depends. I don't think that, it's like I said, society is set up differently. So you do spend time with your grandparents. The holidays are spent at home or with friends, and it's a different setup. It's a different setup.
I think the last topic I'll bring up is, it seems like energy conservation is an important part of life in Sweden. And it's smart, the articles that I did read about it, about, multi-purpose, turning trash into fuel, let's say. And, walk me through that, if you will. Let us know what that system like. They import trash, correct?
They do. Linköping is the city we lived in. It's the third largest city, so it's not a big city. It's a small city, right? But they had one of the first. There's another one, I think it's Sundsvall up north, where they figured it out. They built this big facility. It's beautiful. It's all built with glass, and they light it up at night. It's very, very Swedish. It lights up at night very attractively. But you never run out of hot water. That was one of the ultimate perks. Like, you could steam up your whole house. You've been outside shoveling.
I love that.
Go for it. You never ran out of hot water. It was amazing. It was like instant. But what they did was they take the trash, the biodegradable trash, and they burn it, and then they create, I guess, steam. I don't know how the system works. It was in the art. It broke it down how they did it, but they pipe it into the municipality. So the sidewalks are heated. Some of the streets are heated. Every building benefits from instant hot water and or heating in the radiators. So if you have radiators, they also do a lot of thermal heating. But that being said, it kind of is great because the other thing, this was also hard to get used to for me, recycling. You'd think after living in California, I would be like, let's recycle. I was like, look, people, I have enough going on. Throw it in the trash. Be done with it. Au contraire. In Sweden, if you don't recycle, I kid you not, the trash police will hunt you down and they will find you. Ooh. And they will say, they're not that bad. They're not as bad as like Oregon or something. But I mean, you do have to, there's a trash bin. You throw the stuff in the trash. But they would prefer if you also kept your biodegradable, like your chicken scraps and stuff, your food scraps that you would normally put in a compost. paper products, stuff like that. That is taken separately. So you have 2 trash bins, and one is green, burnable or usable, and one is refuse. And then they take the refuse and they recycle it. So they're really big on recycling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great because it's a very clean country. And by clean, I mean like it's clean. It's clean. Kids are brought up to take care. You are taught from the moment you start walking, you leave no trace and you take care of everything. So you never go into a campsite. If you do, it's really rare. And I don't know who they'd be. They get in a lot of trouble, but you never find trashed campsites or trashed camping areas. That's why I'll just divert for a second. Chad, you guys asked me once if I had ever found a campsite in the woods that just looked like it had been destroyed or not taken care of. The answer was yes, but that's what made it so freaky.
Right.
Because you don't find them unless something happened. And you didn't start seeing them until after they had that migrant population where you had people moving through the country in the woods, which then that is its own scary thing. But and that doesn't happen. So if you do find something like that, you know, it's probably beneficial to make sure that no one's missing or there hasn't been a crime committed because it's not normal.
Yeah. I just think evidence.
Yeah. The free hot water is just phenomenal. That is amazing.
I would definitely agree with that.
You know, not killing yourself when you walk down the street, you know, which you know, if you've got a dog or whatever, you end up on your back at least once. But it's, you know, it's nice not to have to do that. And then they have these big recycling areas. You just drive your car up. A lot of people do this, especially if you have a house or you have a good area, you know, again, IKEA, you know how they sell I guess it's more popular now. I'm old school, but you know, one's for paper, one's for cans, one's for whatever.
Yeah.
People do that. They dump it in their bags or they put the bins in the back of their Volvo. And then they drive, they drive to the recycling area. And that's what you do on Saturday or Sunday. And then you go, grocery shopping and wherever you go. But they have bins and it'll say the garden clippings, plastics, light bulbs. And you just drive along and the guy is there. He's like, oh, put it there. Oh, put it there. And they have these big recycling and everybody does it. And because everybody does it, it works. But it takes getting used to, and it does take time. You know what I mean? Like you have to. And that's another one of those American things. I don't have time to do that. Who does that? And then you get there and then they say, what do you mean? Why don't you have time? And we all do that. And then you're like, okay. Yeah. Inform. And you're like,
Well, that's awesome. You have shared some great information. I think we might have some questions.
We got a few questions here. Denise Bertucci wanted to know, are stores typically closed on Sundays?
Some stores are, just like here.
Okay.
The store that is closed on Sunday is that. So the Systembolaget, which everybody knows. The government, just like in Canada or some different states, the liquor store is run by the government because they collect money on the taxes. Now, that being said, they buy small and the quality is excellent, but it's only open Saturday through Monday through Saturday. And Saturday, I think it closes at 6. And then during the week, I think 9 o'clock on the average. But that's the biggest difference. It used to be, especially in places like Germany, everything closes up on Sundays. Italy, everything closes on a Sunday. Not as much in Sweden. Everything is usually open. The grocery stores can be open up to 24 hours. It just depends on the grocery store. It's a lot like the United States that way, that you can get everything. I mean, they have Circle K's.
All right. Jeff Mack, the Macalorian, wants to know, how does payment work if a foreigner is visiting Sweden and needs a medical procedure done?
That is a really good question, and I'm not quite sure. So you will never be denied medical care, right? If you're in a car accident or something, they're not gonna leave you, for the ferrets on the side of the road.
Where's your insurance card?
Right, and take you in. But if you need extended medical care, that is when, if you're going to be there and you think, you might, Normally, your personal health insurance, as I understand it in the United States, if you have health insurance, you have some limited coverage. Okay. Will it cover medical transport if you are bitten by a shark and your leg is missing and you're going to need extensive care once they stabilize you? And are they going to airlift you back to the city? That might require an extra rider policy. So I guess the best is I would and ask the question, if you're going to be riding a bike or something, or biking around the country, which is really popular, or skiing and you're like hella skiing or something, and you're doing some motorcycle riding, you might want to get an extra medical policy. They say they sell travel insurance, right? That covers different things.
I've heard that you can get insurance for that.
It's super easy. It's not a third world country. It's a first world country. And they do have, they do have state of the art hospitals like the Karolinska Institute in Sundsvall and just north of Stockholm. I mean, it's one of the leading cancer research hospitals in the world.
Oh, wow.
So they're right up there with,
I know William Robinson has been asking me about your healthcare. He doesn't really give me a question, but how do you feel the healthcare is there compared to our healthcare here? I mean, it sounds better. I mean,
do you mean like the level of care?
I don't know.
Okay.
It says healthcare in Sweden.
Healthcare in Sweden is affordable, and it's a level of relaxation and comfort knowing that you will be cared for no matter what happens to you. Okay. It's hard. It always made me nervous because I didn't trust it being an American. Like, really? Like, just like my husband's heart surgery. Am I going to get that hidden bill? Okay. That is really good. Was I covered for everything? You bet. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona has a hospital, doctor's office, plastic surgeon, cancer specialist on every single corner in the city. If you need Botox, I can go down the street and get Botox in a heartbeat. In Linköping or in Sweden, they might not have everything you need right in that city, but you will be referred to it. I don't know how else to say that. I guess if you live in a small town in Texas and you need a heart hospital, chances are you're going to have to drive, I don't know, to the next biggest city to get it, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is the only way I know how to answer that question. I do know that I feel I'm very lucky. My husband works for the state. It's with the sheriff's department. So we have good health insurance. I feel, knock on wood, really lucky about that.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't, I would be a nervous wreck because we're getting older. I have, you have issues as you get older.
Yeah.
And in Sweden, I didn't have to worry, right? I could still call the doctor. I could still go to the emergency room. I was cared for. I don't know how else to explain that. It's a level of personal comfort, knowing you're covered. But as an American, I was always really nervous. Like, will they treat me? What if they say no? And my husband would say, well, are you stupid? And I would say, oh, I'm just traumatized.
Yeah.
He'd say, honey, don't worry about it. We'll get it taken care of. So it takes some getting used to, right?
Yeah.
I've had a few surgeries here in the States for different things. And I always remember the thing I hated the most is you'd get a bill and you'd be like, do I need to pay this bill or is my insurance company taking care of this bill? And then let's say you're scared. So you pay the bill and then your insurance company calls you and is like, why did you pay that bill? That's something we're working on, right? All these different things with the insurance company. I was like, okay, I'm not paying shit until I have to pay it. Until you tell me that I need to pay it, I'm not paying anything.
Well, that and the insurance costs are out in the United States they're obscene. It's just like you asked sugar in food and health insurance costs. That's what you asked me about the difference in quality of life. Mm-hmm. Insurance, right? We both pay the same amount of taxes now, right? But Americans pay such a high cost for healthcare, and insurance in general is crazy. Is absolutely crazy. Our friends call us and say, do you have to pay for that? They'll see something in the news or they'll ask us questions like, oh my God. And we notice it every day. So but again, it's just the way the system is set up. But I agree, Chad. It can cause bankruptcy. If you had your traumatic injury and then you have a child that's in ICU, oh my God, you're paying. In Sweden, you wouldn't have to worry about it. It would be covered and you'd still have really good care. Here, it can break a family. And that is tragic. And that's what is so, that insurance is that's probably the biggest thing.
Oh yeah.
Gary Spikes here says, and in fact, we know somebody as well. He said, I have one shot I have to take that is $18,000. And a friend of ours was talking. She's on, can I say it? Not her, but
I guess so.
She's on Skyrizi, and that one treatment cost her $24,000.
It was a $24,000 charge for that one shot or one treatment.
And I'm not sure what Skyrizi's for, but I'm sure you can just watch TV and see the commercial because there's a commercial every 5 seconds.
That is terrifying. Europeans look at the United States healthcare system and they're like, well, yeah, it's everywhere, but it's just terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. And that's one of the biggest things when people think about moving back to the United States is that's terrifying. I'm so sorry. I'm like, we pay healthcare costs too, like that, which are much higher than where they would be for our normal stuff if we were home or if we were back in Sweden. But that's
it's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous that we let the pharmaceutical companies dictate that kind of money, because if they sat down with you and tell you what does each bit, what is this money paying for?
Yeah.
I bet they can't do everything that it's paying for. I bet the shot to create the shot's cheaper, than what that you're paying for. So I don't know. The kind of money they're making.
Well, and they don't tell you that those same shots are available in Europe.
Yeah, that's true.
And we don't pay that.
Yeah, makes me more.
But you don't know it until you're there, right? One of America's biggest exports is pharmaceuticals. Yep. It's one of our biggest exports now. Where do we export it? The rest of the world. In Sweden, the government they make deals and they buy the pharmaceuticals en masse and then sell them to the population through the healthcare system. So Eliquis, that is $350 a month, there is what, $35, $30, something like that. You still have to pay for some, not all, just like with your insurance policy. Yeah. Some are free and some are low and some are high. But if you were buying Eliquis, like my husband, again, overshare, but $35 in Sweden.
Wow.
So insulin is the same thing. It's free.
Yeah, there's probably going to be some people in chat moving to Sweden.
Diabetes, is that pretty high, percentage there, like diabetes compared to the United States? Are there many diabetics?
There are diabetics, but overall the society, I don't want to say necessarily is healthier, but because of the lifestyle and the lack of sugar in the food, America is nothing but sugar in the processed foods. In Sweden, you don't have that many processed foods. You don't have fast food chains all over the place. You've got McDonald's and Burger King. The guy that owns Burger King bought out all the rights to Taco Bell and can never have it until like he dies or something. There'll never be a Taco Bell in Sweden because this guy blocked it. But you don't have that same eating culture. So the answer is no. People are generally less obese. Are there still diabetes? You bet. People love sugar. Yeah. But overall, you have to walk or ride or move your body more. And it's a cultural thing to be out in nature, right? People love to be out in nature. That's where you spend most of even the kids grow up in school. When you're in school, you spend how many days a week, if the weather's good, at least as much. They have classes outside.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I guess that's the only other question. I've gained more weight coming back to the United States than I had ever skiing than when I lived in Europe because I'm not walking and I'm not riding my bike.
Yeah.
It's almost 120 degrees outside. I'm not walking.
Yes.
No.
Don Donaldson wants to know, do they have pizza joints in Sweden?
Oh my God, you're like my mom. She used to ask me, do they have microwave popcorn? I don't mean to be rude, but that's like the same question. That was one of her brilliant lines. She used to mail me microwave popcorn. I'm never sure. I'm like, oh my God, Mom, this is a picture of my microwave. You've been to our apartment. The answer is yes. Pizza is extremely popular in Sweden. Now, they only have one pizza. It's not American deep dish pizza, much to my chagrin, because they only have weird, funky, oddball, who the hell eats that toppings on top? So you can go, and they usually have the Italian crust. Like it's not popular to do the bready bread if you like thick crust. Again, round as a shape. But you have the mostly like the European style flat, but Swedes love their pizza. And if you're young and you've been out Friday and Saturday night, most people have pizza on Sundays or a really juicy hamburger because they want the fat. They're all hung over.
Yeah.
And the one thing they don't do, they don't share their pizza. You don't get like individual 12-inch size pizzas. You get pizza and they each have a box. This was the hardest. I ate one piece of pizza and I'm fine. I'm a girl. Like, okay. In Sweden, everybody gets a box. You open it up and you power drive this pizza.
No.
Does not bode well for my previous statement about obesity. but it's different. It's different. It's a thin crust with a couple toppings. So yes, and they love beer. So again, but they ride their bikes to work. That's going to be the difference, I guess.
So cool.
Okay, here's a very important question. Are Swedish fish really from Sweden?
Whoa.
No. It's like the the popcorn shrimp. That guy is Norwegian. No, they're Swedish. They're Swedish.
No.
Well, no, the gummy, the Haribo gummy bears are German.
Okay.
Okay, so that gummy food, because fishy things. Do they have them there? Yeah, they love licorice and their gummies. But overall, Swedes love licorice and they love licorice. So they might have the gummy fish aren't. They're there, but not in the same way that they are here. They're not marketed as gummy fish. They're more like gummy worms or something like that. And yeah, you can get them everywhere. But they love licorice. And when you have a dinner party or a party afterwards, you'll have dessert, and then everybody hangs out and has cocktails afterwards, quite late. Sometimes you turn on the radio and dancing is the big thing. And then people put out bowls of candy. Again, you would think that we all, 300 pounds. We're not. They walk. And people sit there and they there's a bowl of candy and it can be gummy food, but you don't usually see the gummy goldfish. It's licorice usually.
Jeff Mack has another question. Let me click on it. Is surströmming a popular pizza topping?
Ask him if he's had it. Ask him if he's had it.
Okay, Jeff Mack, have you had it on a pizza?
Oh God, no, not on a pizza. Almost like no, surströmming. But has he ever tried it?
Okay, Jeff, there you go, buddy. There's a question for you.
This is fun.
Okay.
He said, and I quote, hell no.
It's something you only do once. Sweden, in northern Sweden, this is from Viking area and ancient peoples. The only way to preserve fish was to bury it. And if you buried it, and ferment it with salt. Okay. And it stems from that. But these people found a way to can it. So you go, and especially in northern Sweden, it's more popular. And it's more popular in northern Sweden than where we were. We were kind of in middle Sweden. Picture Los Angeles. That's where we were. Okay. This would be wet. And they have these cans, and it's called surströmming. And it is very fermented fish. Just fermented fish. Think about it. And so you have these parties and everybody says, oh, we're going to have a surstrumming party. And some people say, hey, this will be fun. Fred hasn't been to one yet. And then the other people say, oh, I love it. Or, okay, fine, I'll eat potatoes or something else. But you have to open these cans underwater. So you have a bucket of water. You open the can of surstrumming because the smell the smell is so bad. And if it gets on your clothes, it's like a skunk. You can't get it out. Anyway, they open the can, they drain it, and they set it to the side. And then you have again, theme parties are big in Sweden. So you have a surstrumming party and you sit down and it isn't a pizza. It's served on Swedish flatbread, like a Swedish flatbread, like a thick cracker, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have cheese and you have butter and you have onions and you have sour cream and you have fresh dill and you have copious amounts of schnapps, which you need.
It sounds like you probably need it.
For the taste of this. Yeah. So you pass it around and everybody's like, oh God, I want to sit upwind, right? You're hoping it's on a windy day. You pass this around and you take your flatbread, you cover it with whatever your butter, your cheese, you put a little bit of fish. It doesn't take much. Like a thimbleful of fish, and then you coat it with creme fraiche, with sour cream, onions, and then some fresh dill. And then it's mildly edible. But that's what he's talking about. People give it as a gag gift. It's like giving someone a can of haggis.
I was going to say haggis. Yep. Yep.
Haggis is great. Haggis, I like haggis. It tastes like meat. It's like a grainy meatloaf. It's pretty good. But I mean, it's like when you get the Secret Santa gifts, we found a can of haggis once shopping and it went around Patrick's office for about 6 years. People kept rewrapping it. And it was whoever got the can of haggis had to keep it displayed in their office because they do that with surstrumming. If you get a can of surstrumming, it's like, oh no, would you like to take this one home? Or, it's one of the Swedish delicacies.
That probably also falls into the same classification as Vegemite, because I've heard a lot of things about Vegemite too. Yeah, I don't know. One of my girlfriends is Aussie, and she loves Vegemite. Like she will take Vegemite. Vegemite can cure anything. If you have a disease, Vegemite, you can kill. I tasted. She was raving about it, and I went over to her house, and we were there, and she served it to us. She had it on the table. It's like peanut butter for us, right? They put it on everything. It is. I don't even know how to describe it. I would not eat it, but she loves it. Her kids ate it. I don't know. I wouldn't. Vegemite. Nope.
I have one quick question for you now that we're talking about this. Do you now go to the international market and purchase anything from Sweden?
Yeah. because I'm used to it.
Yeah.
They don't really sell my favorites here so much because my inner mouse loves Swedish cheese, and there's a really great Swedish cheese called Västerbottenost, which is more like a really nice aged Gouda. If you're like my little whiskers right now are like, ooh. Again, round as a shape. But they we do, like we go to IKEA, like you go to IKEA. When I lived in Sweden, I used to send Mexican food to myself because I couldn't get the chilies or the stuff that I want. They do now, but I had to, send it home. When I'm here, we go to IKEA and we'll have, although mine are better, home is always better, but meatballs or salmon. You can get just about it. The things I can't get. Yeah, I'm going to say the cheese. And then they also have, smoked shrimp. Smoked shrimp. You cannot get smoked, at least in Arizona. I cannot find smoked shrimp, and they are amazing with a garlic aioli in the summertime and a nice. I like food. I'm just
okay. So you like food. Danny Buckner asks, "What is your favorite Swedish dish?"
All right, I have several, but I'm gonna my favorite Swedish dish. All right. Okay. That's hard. My favorite Swedish dish isn't necessarily my favorite meal is the one my husband makes me, which is a roast moose with a chanterelle cognac cream sauce and his roasted Hasselback potatoes. That's my favorite meal overall. But if I'm going to pick a favorite Swedish dish, there's two. And one is, it's called a Skagens potato, and I guess here we call them langostino. It's the little tiny lobster tails, and you mix that with cream fresh and a little dill and a little pepper and some lemon. You make it like a shmoo, and then you bake a potato and you coat this thing with the shmoo, and then you put some shrimp on top.
Oh yeah.
And then maybe some dill. That is really good. Round as a shape. And then you have the other thing I love. They have something that's typically Swedish I'd never seen before, and it's oh my God, what's the name of it? I'll describe. It's a cake. It looks like a cake, but it's made with layers of white bread. And then instead of frosting, you put a smear of, you could use like a creamed ham or a salmon or trout or something like that between the layers. You go up about 4 layers, and then you coat it all in a cream cheese, sour cream kind of frosting. And then you top it with, they're beautiful, just fresh herbs, rolled fish, piles of shrimp, maybe some egg, fresh tomatoes. And it's a savory cake.
It's like,
I don't, so when the first time you eat it, you're like, what is that? It's beautiful. And then you bite into it and your mind is thinking, oh, this is going to be like a white cake. And then your mind is like, this is salmon. And then you're trying to make that work, but it's, if anybody ever has the chance to try it, I would say, by all means, a smorgas torta, a sandwich cake is what it's described as. It's just, they're beautiful. They're just they're works of art, but they're really good.
I love that.
As with IKEA, and everybody that goes to IKEA usually gets Swedish meatballs.
Yeah.
Are they as big over there as IKEA makes it big over here? I mean, are Swedish meatballs really a big thing in Sweden?
Oh, I thought you meant size-wise. I'm like, really, like the same size?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I was like, who's making big meatballs like that? Italian. Are they a big thing? Oh my God, that is like macaroni and cheese over there. Everybody has it. And coming from the West Coast, we didn't eat a lot of gravy. We grill a lot and a lot of salads. So I brought salad to Sweden. Everybody would say, oh, Susie will bring the salad and grill. And then my girlfriend had to teach me how to make gravy because my grandmother made it at Thanksgiving. I never had to. Yes. My husband boils a better egg than I do. Like, I'm a really good cook, but I don't make coffee because Swedes know how. And he still laughs and he's like, how the hell can you make that? But you can't boil a damn egg. I'm like, well, it exploded. He's like, well, because you boiled it too long. And I'm like, well, I thought you boiled, it's just one of those things. Yeah. But that's it. But I had to learn how to make Swedish meatballs, and I love them now. So Swedish meatballs are big. Yeah.
So Jerry at Old Line Cryptids wants to know. So when it comes to meats, what is preferred? Steak, chicken, pork, etc. What's the popular meat to use? Moose. I mean, what's popular?
Wild game. Good, popular, and I was lucky that we had all our friends were hunters. My husband was a hunter. I very rarely, unless I needed beef for a recipe or like osobuco, like oxtail or something like that. Or maybe I bought pork every now and then, but we had a freezer, and our freezer was, knock on wood, I miss that. We always had wild boar. We bought a lamb. We had friends that had a farm, and we always bought a lamb and had it butchered, or they butchered it for us. And then we butchered our own venison, moose, and wild boar and fish. So when you are out at restaurants, moose is common in season because you can buy all the wild meats at the grocery store. You can go to Safeway or Co-op or the Coop or whatever. You can go to the grocery store just like you can here. And they have a section that has all the different beef, pork, chicken, and then they have all the wild game. And that I miss. So usually venison would be elk, I like to cook. I like to cook. So the funniest thing was one day our friend, because they do have, you asked about nuisance hunting. If you have a farm, because wild boars are pretty damaging. So you'll have groups of farmers that'll go out, especially the guys that like to hunt, and they'll go out and they'll take out as many as they can at night. Usually that's the only time you can use a scope hunting, a night scope. It's illegal otherwise to hunt other animals with a night scope. And then they sell the meat. But Tobias called us once. He's like, hey man, I got a nice sized boar last night. You guys need it? And Patrick was like, sure. So we knocked on our door and then we had to walk up the stairs carrying, have you ever seen the big mail carriers? Like what they put mail in? It's like a container. Okay. Here is a skinned dog size, legs, head, take that. And we're walking. It was like a bad horror movie. It's a little drippy. I had some paper towels. Patrick's lugging it up the stairs. We get it inside. We put it on the kitchen table. Now we have to clear a space because normally you would butcher in the barn, at a friend's barn, or a lot of the barns have. I'm sure like they do there, but where you hang the meat, you butcher it there. Tobias just happened to throw it in the back of the car and bring it home for us. When you looked out of our kitchen window down the way, there was a bus stop. And so we had this big window in our kitchen, and I just pictured how it looked with me holding the legs of the boar.
Oh.
And Patrick's working the bone saw like this. The dog is having epileptic fits waiting for bits to fall on the floor. We carved that whole thing up. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
It was so funny. So I'm sorry, Jerry, if you asked me that question, I'm just going to say any wild meat, but I will never forget. We actually took pictures of it. It was like Psycho.
Yes.
And when I first met Patrick and I went to his apartment because I knew, I took my shoes off at the front door and he had like a coat closet, a little cabinet. And there's a space where you have umbrellas, right? And your coats. And leaning against the wall was, it looks, if anybody knows what a bone saw looks like, it looks kind of like what you'd use for plumbing, but on a bigger scale. Yeah. And I picked it up and as a joke, I said, oh my God, what do you have a bone saw for? Like every dude needs a bone saw. This guy's going to be handy. And he laughed and he said, well, it's for the animals. And I turned around and his living room wall is,
like Jeff's.
Yeah. Like he had a lot of, horn heads, and they don't necessarily step them. They just, boil them down. So it's a lot of at night in poor lighting, it can be a little bit weird if you're not used to it. But anyway, who keeps a bone saw behind their door? He did. Yeah. He's a keeper. That's how you know. And then one year he let me kind of decorate his moose, but it only let me do it once. After that, he felt it was a travesty and not a fitting way to celebrate the holidays to decorate the moon.
Oh boy.
I didn't decorate the moon. But anyway, Jerry, that was a long answer. All right, man.
That's awesome.
I think that's it for the questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing your evening with us.
Absolutely.
And your Sweden experiences.
You're welcome. I don't know how informative it was, but it was fun.
Very informative and entertaining.
Now you all know I'm kind of nutty. So it's okay.
Oh, we knew that
it was
before.
Fun. I enjoyed it. Yes, of course.
I'm glad.
But it is fun, and it's fun to compare the differences. And my only thing is, if you ever have the chance to travel, do. That's my biggest, because you're experiencing the differences in the world is eye-opening, and
absolutely
it's beneficial to everybody.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Everybody that's in chat, if you haven't given us a thumbs up, please think about it. We'd love to have a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. We talk about everything, as you can tell.
Yes.
As you can tell, last week was UFOs. This week, Sweden. So, that's how we roll here.
Yeah.
At the IKEA podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You've gotten lots of compliments already. So we appreciate you being here.
Well,
And
thank you,
everybody
Jane.
that's still in chat, head on over to Gerald and Jane at Midwest Night Watchers. They just started their show, and give them some love as well. Everybody, Erica and I and Suzanne, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Next week's show, we will be on Sunday at 5. We will be talking sleep paralysis and sleep terror and all of that fun, scary stuff. So we'll see. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we'll talk to everybody next week. Have a good night, everybody. Suzanne, just hang on just a second and I'll talk to you backstage.
All right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.